Welcome back, guys. So in this video we will going to activate the C5 complement component. Okay, so in previous videos we have only discussed about the formation of C3 converters, right? So in each complement pathway, no matter whether it is classical complement pathway or lectin complement pathway or alternative pathway, we have ended our lecture after the formation of C3 convertase. So in this video we will going to extend that part. Remember, this video and the video that I will going to upload tomorrow will be common for all the three pathway. Okay, that is classical pathway, lectin pathway and alternative pathway. From the activation of C3 and C5, the rest of the step are same for each and every complement pathways. Okay, so let's see how and what are the steps that we have to follow for the activation of C3 and C5. First of all, we have formed the C3 convertase in each cases. Although here I have taken the diagram that I have used to explain you the classical pathway, but in each and every cases we have formed the C3 convertase. For your classical pathway and lectin pathway, the composition was C4b 2a, and for your alternative pathway the composition of C3 convertase was C3b b small b. Okay, so now here another component will bind. Let's see how. So the name of the composition that we have formed in our previous videos is C3 convertase. That means it have the ability to convert C3, right? So it will cleave C3 into two component, and that is how it activates C3. Okay, so remember, C3 complement component will be activated by C3 convertase. Clear? So again two fragment will be produced, C3b and C3a, and C3a here is the smaller fragment, so it will dissociate and it is a fluid phase anaphylatoxin. Although I will going to take a separate lecture on anaphylatoxin, so please don't bother about this. So now this anaphylatoxin will bind with receptors on mast cell and blood vessels and induces degranulation with release of histamine and other active mediators. Okay, so what anaphylatoxin will do? Anaphylatoxin will bind with receptors present on mast cell and basophils and induces degranulation, okay, with release of histamines and other active mediators. We will going to talk about those histamine and active mediators. We will going to talk about mast cell and blood basophils in our chapter hypersensitivity also. Okay, so along with that, anaphylatoxin also induces smooth muscle contraction and increase vascular permeability. Clear? So that is the job of C3a, and here the main thing is about C3b. So this C3b will continue the complement activation cascade by binding to the cell surface around the site of complement activation, meaning the C3b will bind with that C3 convertase, okay, and convert the C3 convertase into C5 convertase. That means now the new composition will going to cleave C5. Okay, so now the composition of the C5 convertase for classical and lectin pathway is C4b 2a 3b, and for alternative pathway the composition of C5 convertase is C3b b small b and C3b. Okay, so remember, for in case of alternative pathway the composition of C5 convertase contains two C3b. Okay, one is due to the spontaneous hydrolysis of C3b and one is due to the cleavage of C3 convertase. Okay, that breaks C3 into two parts. One is C3b, another one is C3a. Okay, now this C5 convertase will going to break C5 into two parts. One is C5a, another one is C5b. Now this C5a will going to play the role of anaphylatoxin, okay, and C5 will bind to cell surface and forms the nucleus for the binding of the terminal complement component. Okay, so it is obvious that there are many components still left. That is why we will going to discuss about this in one more another video. So this is our today's topic, where we have learned about the activation of C3 and C5. For a quick recap, in previous videos we have talked about the formation of C3 convertase. This C3 convertase will break C3 into two parts, C3b and C3a. This C3a will play the role of fluid phase anaphylatoxin. Anaphylatoxin will bind with the receptors present on the surface of the mast cell and blood basophils and induces degranulation with release of active mediators such as histamine and other active mediators. Okay, and it also induces smooth muscle contraction and increases vascular permeability. Okay, so that is all about C3a, and this C3b will go and bind with the C3 convertase and convert it into C5 convertase. Okay, now this C5 convertase will going to break C5 complement protein into C5a and C5b. This C5a will act as a anaphylatoxin and C5b will go and form the nucleus for the binding of terminal complement component. Okay, so I hope this video will be helpful for you for understanding the activation of the C3 and C5.